On this Sunday night, escalating violence and uncertainty in Iran. The reports of hundreds dead as Iran cracks down on anti-government protests.
There is an unprecedented level of uprising in the country.
And the regime's threats to retaliate if the U.S. intervenes. The Trump administration doubles down on ICE.
These officers were doing their due diligence.
How it's defending the fatal shooting of Renee Good while pushing more immigration enforcement into Minnesota. Plus, a breakthrough heart surgery in Ontario. How doctors pulled off 2 vital procedures in one operation. And spreading word of a bird. Why a single robin is stirring a frenzy in Montreal.
Global National, reporting tonight. Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Iran is being accused of unleashing deadly force on demonstrators, and today Tehran issued a sharp warning to Washington that U.S. forces and Israel could become legitimate targets, saying it will retaliate against any strikes inside its territory. It's a move U.S. officials say President Donald Trump is weighing, raising fears the situation could escalate beyond Iran's borders. Demonstrators across the Islamic Republic are standing firm, demanding a regime change. It's still difficult to know the extent of what's happening, given internet and telecommunications have been cut. But according to human rights groups, more than 500 people have been killed and more than 10,000 arrested, with activists warning the actual numbers may be much higher. Heather Yourex-West has our top story tonight.
The streets of Iran on fire as protesters continue to stand up to an oppressive government undeterred. Watching from her home in Calgary, Iranian-Canadian Ghazal Kanlarbig says the last few days have been an incredibly emotional time.
Today is the 3rd day that Iran is in a total blackout. They cut the internet, phone lines. So, and we all know why is that. Last time it happened was in bloody November.
1,500 protesters were killed in November 2019 when the Iran regime moved to crush a nationwide uprising. Human rights groups estimate so far hundreds more have died this time around, though numbers have been impossible to verify. This video shows loved ones gathered outside a medical center in Tehran to identify bodies. U.S. President Donald Trump, who over the weekend took to social media to say his country stands ready to help Iranians seeking freedom, will be briefed Tuesday on potential next steps, according to the Wall Street Journal. Chants of death to America in Iran's parliament Sunday, as the government promised retaliation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country was closely monitoring developments in Iran, hoping it would soon be freed from the yoke of tyranny.
There is an unprecedented level of uprising in the country. That's very clear. It's nationwide. It's probably the worst bout of protests that the country has seen since this regime came to power in 1979.
Weakened after U.S. attacks on its nuclear facilities and a 12-day war with Israel last June, Iran's government is now forced to deal with a public uprising triggered by rampant inflation and economic unrest. An uprising Ghazal Kanlarbig hopes will be for this regime the beginning of the end.
Iranian people are going to free their country. They're making a new history. This time it's not about hope, it's going to happen.
But that outcome is far from certain as the people of Iran brace for more violence in the days ahead. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Around the world, there's no shortage of people joining the chorus of condemnation, standing in solidarity with those sweeping anti-government protests. In London, Iranian women demanded action in front of Downing Street, the residence of the British Prime Minister. And Parisians marched in front of the Eiffel Tower, pushing for political change in Iran, and burned a picture of Iran's supreme leader. After that U.S. operation and capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and the seizure of several oil tankers linked to the South American nation, today President Trump said no more Venezuelan oil or money will go to Cuba, suggesting the communist-run island should cut a deal with Washington. He posted that after joking that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio should become Cuba's next president. Venezuela is Cuba's biggest oil supplier, but there's been no delivery since Maduro was extradited to New York just over a week ago. That's where he remains in custody on weapons and drugs charges. And in Europe today, Denmark's prime minister said the nation is at a, quote, fateful moment as Trump repeatedly threatens to take over Greenland. Mette Frederiksen accused Washington of potentially turning its back on NATO and said Trump's push to acquire the Danish territory puts her country at a crossroads ahead of a high-stakes meeting this week between the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The Trump administration isn't backing down from defending the ICE agent who fatally shot a Minneapolis woman inside her vehicle last week. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has repeatedly claimed the officer's actions were justified, labeling Renee Good as a domestic terrorist, all as federal authorities shut out local law enforcement from their investigation and outrage intensifies over Good's death. Candice Cole reports.
Fierce clashes between immigration enforcement and protesters continue in Minneapolis for a fourth day as the Trump administration doubles down in its defense of the ICE agent who shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Good.
This law enforcement officer took action based on his training to protect himself and the public.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem appearing on CNN's State of the Union Sunday, accusing Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey of politicizing Good's death, inflaming the public, and, quote, trying to attack a law enforcement officer. She also characterized Good as a domestic terrorist.
The facts of the situation are that the vehicle was weaponized and it attacked the law enforcement officer. That is an act of domestic terrorism. It happened in our shores. It happened here in our country. You don't get to change the facts just because you don't like them.
Noem came to that conclusion on social media just hours after Good's death, prior to any investigation.
That was some wild and crazy stuff. It sounds like she doesn't believe a single word that she is saying right now.
Frey, also appearing on CNN, responded to Noem's allegations.
Anybody can see that this victim is not a domestic terrorist. I mean, my goodness, she's like doing a 3 or a 4 or 5 point turn. This looks like somebody that's trying to get out of there.
By definition, domestic terrorism, according to the federal government, refers to crimes in the U.S. that are ideologically driven to intimidate the public or sway government policy decisions. The Trump administration has come under fire for refusing to hold a joint investigation with Minneapolis law enforcement into Good's death, as the situation continues to raise concerns over the use of force by ICE agents on the ground. According to Noem, hundreds of more officers will be sent to Minneapolis between Sunday and Monday. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
Here on home soil, the departure of Liberal MP Chrystia Freeland to work as an economic advisor to Ukraine leaves the federal Liberals 2 votes shy of a majority. And as Jillian Piper reports, with at least one by-election looming, the opposition parties are on guard against more potential defections to the governing side.
After Mark Carney spent much of the election campaign trying to differentiate himself from his predecessor, Justin Trudeau's former deputy prime minister is now leaving his cabinet.
Having Ms. Freeland move along to a new opportunity internationally frees up the space for some new voices and perspectives within the Carney government here in Canada.
Chrystia Freeland's resignation will trigger a by-election to fill her vacant seat, coming as early as March, with Carney saying there will be more departures to come.
There'll be a few by-elections coming up, and we'll run great candidates, and the people in those ridings will decide who they want to send to Parliament.
Carney did not elaborate on who may be leaving or when, but 2 names widely speculated on Parliament Hill to be departing are Trudeau-era ministers Jonathan Wilkinson and Bill Blair. But even if all current MPs were to stay, Freeland's exit still leaves Carney 2 seats shy of a majority government.
It will be extremely difficult for the Liberal government to achieve its very ambitious agenda without a majority in Parliament to get key legislation passed.
The Liberals poached former Conservative MPs Chris D'Entremont and Michael Ma last year, and efforts are seemingly ongoing to grow the caucus. Conservative MP Scott Anderson says he has been approached by the Liberals to cross the floor and turned them down, saying it'll be a cold day in hell before I even consider betraying my constituents. But it's not just the Conservatives. Interim NDP leader Don Davies says the Liberals have also approached his MPs, including Nunavut MP Lori Idlout, who said earlier this week she will not be crossing the floor. Carney has denied his team is on the offense.
They came to us. They were interested in, they were attracted by what the government is doing. This is a positive vote for the government, supporting the government at a crucial time for our country.
The government will need opposition support in order to pass any new legislation, including the budget, which will likely be challenging, with the Liberals trying to poach from the other parties. Jillian Piper, Global News, Ottawa.
During last year's election, Prime Minister Mark Carney got a boost from a wave of Canadian patriotism as he vowed to stand up to Donald Trump's tariffs and annexation threats. That national pride also helped domestic businesses as more Canadians wanted to buy Canadian. Now, new polling from Ipsos shows those spending habits are shifting, but not enough to turn around distrust in our southern neighbor. Eric Bay reports.
With a business built on Canada-themed products, Joe Nicoluk is used to ebbs and flows.
Things come and go with different events and military events and sporting events and Canada Day, of course.
But over the past year, the O Canada Gear owner says those cycles have been thrown off.
It's been a big push for pro-Canada. We've had the different referendums going on. So yeah, it's been a big boost for Canada pride.
One of the biggest drivers is U.S. President Donald Trump's comments about Canada. Last winter, Trump started calling Canada the 51st state during early tariff talk. That launched a national push to buy Canadian and drove people looking to rep the maple leaf into Nicoluk's store.
A year ago, it was just crazy when things were going on.
New data from Ipsos shows those shopping trends have changed over the past year.
At first, it was a bit of shock and anger at what had happened in the U.S. and some emotional reaction. And then that developed slowly into more of a pragmatic approach.
Ipsos finds people are now prioritizing cost at the cash register, not where a product is from. But the data shows Canadians are still changing their spending.
And among that subgroup, that is those leisure travelers who are going to travel internationally or within Canada, half of them had replaced a trip to the U.S. with a trip somewhere else.
Different habits showing how Canadians now view their relationship with America.
That trust measure right from February until now has really remained stable, around 55%, saying that they can't trust the Americans the same way again.
Changing their minds about how they do business with the rest of the world.
People wearing the maple leaf, and yeah, it's been positive.
Eric Bay, Global News.
Global News has learned there are active discussions across the Canadian government on how to respond to the continued creation of sexual abuse material by Elon Musk's Grok chatbot. It's been increasingly used to produce sexualized images of people without their consent. This weekend, Indonesia became the first country to block access to the chatbot. It's not clear what options Canada is considering. The federal AI minister has ruled out an outright ban of X, the social media platform that Grok runs on. The chief of Pima-Chickamak Cree Nation confirms 7 Canadian Forces members are arriving today to help deal with a water crisis in the community. In an online update, David Monius says the armed forces members will focus on technical assistance assessments and support related to critical infrastructure and recovery operations. He also says a 30-person mobile camp is being brought in to house workers, and a temporary water treatment plant is being deployed while a long-term repair plan is finalized. The Red Cross has also been sending aid, with most of the community's 1,300 homes dealing with frozen and cracked pipes from an extended power outage in late December.
We felt that being able to offer things like mental health supports, hopefully looking to fill some gaps in, maybe personnel or, emergency response resources in community.
Chief Monius says damage assessments are still underway, and while homes can be repaired, it's hard to fix the psychological and emotional trauma people in the community have experienced. Deadly bushfires in Australia coming up, the hundreds of homes destroyed as record temperatures fuel the flames. Australia is under a catastrophic wildfire situation tonight. At least one person is dead and 300 properties have been destroyed, mostly in the state of Victoria. The bushfires have already burned more than 350,000 hectares and are being fueled by an extreme heat wave and fanned by strong winds. Russia says it struck several sites in Ukraine. It happened on Saturday. Russia's defense ministry didn't say where the strikes took place. Russian forces targeted energy facilities supporting Ukrainian military enterprises, fuel depots, and temporary deployment points for Ukrainian soldiers. On the same day, Ukraine says its troops carried out strikes on several Russian military targets in the Zaporizhia and Donetsk regions. In Pakistan, an explosion destroyed a home which had just hosted a wedding party, killing 8 people, including the bride and groom. Authorities say the blast was caused by a gas leak. It happened early in the morning while family and guests inside were sleeping. A world-first operation in Ontario ahead, how doctors pulled off 2 heart procedures in one surgery. A London, Ontario medical team has completed a world first. They performed a surgery where 2 cardiac procedures were done at the same time. Catherine Ward looks at how the surgeons pulled it off and why doctors say it offers new long-term solutions for heart health.
When we went for a checkup, the nurse in the emergency room said I didn't look too good and I had a persistent cough.
Angela never imagined when she gave birth to her daughter at 33, she would also end up in an operating room fighting for her life that same week.
The exact words that the cardiologist said to me was that you should have had this surgery yesterday. And that was, like, we're talking 4 days after my daughter was born. And when he saw me, he didn't think I was going to make it.
An unexpected serious heart condition affecting her connective tissue would change the course of her life, requiring several surgeries over many years.
Angela had a complex aortic disease where part of her aorta had ruptured and caused the entire aorta to split into several layers. This would be a 10 out of 10 in terms of how severe it is. And, you know, many people don't survive the complications when the aorta ruptures.
Angela was under the care of Dr. Michael Chu at London Health Sciences Centre. In August 2024, he proposed a world first, doing 2 procedures in a single surgery in hopes of reducing the need for future operations and offering a longer-term solution to fixing her heart. That combination involved a protected Ross operation where the aortic valve is replaced and a hybrid arch frozen elephant trunk procedure, which enables an extensive aortic arch replacement in a minimally invasive way.
At the end of the operation, when her heart was beating well and we could see that the frozen elephant trunk was nicely deployed, it's really life-changing for Angela. She has medically a whole different survival curve, which matches the general population. And for her personally, she can anticipate many years ahead now, hopefully without requiring any more reoperations.
Changes and a feeling already in action.
I don't need to worry about climbing stairs or even do like short bouts of running, like being quick about something. I'm not winded. It's all around more light. It's more lighthearted.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
The music world is mourning the loss of Bob Weir, one of the co-founders of the American rock band The Grateful Dead. A statement on his website says Weir died Saturday peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. He succumbed to underlying lung issues and was also diagnosed with cancer last year. Weir's career spanned more than 60 years. In 1965, he co-founded The Grateful Dead, a group that would become rock pioneers for their psychedelic sounds and improvised performances. The group was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. Weir was 78 years old. Next, soaring sensation. Why this robin has got bird watchers flocking to Montreal. An Alberta family had a couple of unexpected and curious visitors. A pair of moose came to check out their home. One took a peek inside their kitchen window. They snacked on some bushes and licked some water or salt off the driveway and went on their way. In Montreal, it's been a weekend of excitement over a much smaller wild animal. A European robin was spotted in the city, the first ever Canadian sighting of the species. As Dan Spector reports, bird watchers from across the continent are flocking to check it out.
This random street corner in the east end of Montreal has become the scene of a feeding frenzy for bird lovers from near and far.
I left Toronto at 6 a.m. Got here about 11:30, I think. And yeah, been waiting around to have a look at this bird.
Like birds to a bird feeder, they're all here with their giant camera lenses and fancy binoculars to see the European robin. As its name suggests, the little bird is very common in Europe, but the first sighting ever recorded in Canada came from Sabrina Jacob on this street.
I saw it on last Wednesday while I was getting out my garbages. So I just heard the bird. He sang for me. So I didn't know what it was.
Nobody knows quite how it got here, but a leading assumption is that it fled a cold winter in Europe and crossed the Atlantic, riding some favorable winds. It's only the fourth time a European robin has been spotted in North America. So as word spread through the bird community, people began flocking here.
There were people from New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Illinois.
One man who did not want to speak on camera said he flew out from Victoria, BC just to spot the European robin and that he was planning to camp out in his car.
Birders are one of a kind. They can be crazy.
I try to wean myself off of it now and then, saying I need a life, but this But I have friends who are more deranged than I am who push me.
After hours of waiting in the cold, the moment they were all waiting for.
It's so much more beautiful in person. It's like a miracle.
To have him sit out in the open in the sunshine was spectacular.
The European robin isn't equipped to spend time in temperatures below -10 Celsius, so when this relatively mild break in the Montreal winter comes to an end, it will likely head south. But at least for now, it's here, snacking on berries and stealing hearts. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Neetu Garsha. Tonight's Your Canada is Winnipeg. Have a great night.